As pastors of local churches, we're always concerned with how to translate all that is taking place in the world so that our parishioners know and understand the battles that are happening, the disasters that are taking place. They see it on television, they often hear it on radio and can read it on social media. They see horrifying sights of just hundreds and thousands of people dying. They still have not reached many of the outlying communities, so it still could very easily reach 10,000. At the same time, they're seeing tornadoes across the United States that are taking place. They see all kinds of disasters, and obviously as a pastor working in these areas, I get a lot of questions from church members. So part of what we're trying to do today is to update you, if you will, on some of the information that we're getting from the field, and through that hopefully help you. So to look at the disasters, particularly Nepal, we have people on the ground. With the Timothy Initiative and Thomas Road Baptist Church, we have 640 pastors that have been trained and placed, that have started small churches, many of them in the rural communities. And they are pastors with churches that may range from 20 to 50 to 60 people in a time of worship. So through that network of 640 pastors, we're able to get immediate information back. We have also been working with a Christian Broadcasting Network out of Virginia Beach, Advance of Native Missions out of Crozet, Virginia. I've been working with a number of other nonprofits to get the most up-to-date information. Now, the recorded number of deaths is actually over 8,000 people. The reality is there are a lot of people that are buried under the wreckage, that are in rural areas where mudslides have taken place, that they're never going to find. And we know without any question from hearing the reports on the ground that the death toll is going to be well over 10,000. Also, the people that live in that country are very, very poor to start out with. Their average income is less than $200 a month. They have almost nothing to work with to recover. Houses are destroyed, even the buildings in Kathmandu are destroyed, and it's going to be very difficult and a long-term affair to be able to help these people recover. If it had been in the United States, it would have been a different situation, because we have agencies and we have the funding and we have the infrastructure, but in Nepal, none of that exists. Some of the major cities, and the 4 or 5 major cities they do have an infrastructure that they can work with, but you get outside of those 4 or 5 major cities and the people live just scattered all over small communities. What we have been able to do so far at Gleaning for the World and through our network is initially we sent several thousands of dollars to the pastors in the communities to buy immediate food. So we went from, we transitioned from actually sending money to the pastors that we knew we could trust, that were going to do what they said they were going to do, to actually locating food on the commodities market. And by working with Christian Broadcasting Network and Thomas Road, we were able to raise the funds, and we were able to send in 56,000 pounds of rice. Now, that distributed through the pastors and the local churches so that they can also minister to the people in need. They can also share the gospel with the people in need. With that kind of outreach, they're going to be able to reach their entire communities. And one of the things that really bothered me to no end, because we have a commitment at Gleaning for the World, that we're going to feed anybody at any time. Doesn't make any difference to us whether Muslim or Buddhist or what faith they may have. If they're children and elderly and people that are starving, we're going to provide food for them. It's the way that we do earn the right to be able to share the gospel when the people want to know why we're doing this when no one else is doing it. We found out that there were a number of denominational groups that were sending food into local churches, but they were only giving the food out in the local church. And there were literally riots, there were death threats, there were all kinds of issues that developed off of that. And personally, I consider that to be unchristian. That's my opinion, and no one has to accept it, but I consider it unchristian. If you are a believer and you're sitting on the ground and you're eating rice or you're eating something else, and you see your brother, you see a sister, you see a child that is hungry, and you don't share your food, that is not representing the gospel to anyone. In fact, I don't even believe it is the gospel. So when we began working with the Timothy Initiative to actually distribute the food went to the pastors and the churches with an absolute understanding that everyone in the community was going to eat. Now, this provided food for 1 month for these people. And within that month, their spring season will begin and there will be other food available. We're looking at sending a second container now of food so that we can branch out even further and reach more believers, because you can share the gospel when you share the food together. When you look in the Gospel of Matthew at the feeding the 5,000, the scripture says that there were 5,000, not counting the women and children. And there were about 30 to 35,000 people on that hillside. When you count the men, the women, the children, count all of them. And there was a little boy that came up, and that Jesus had said to the disciples, "You go feed the people." And they said, "Lord, we don't have any food. How can we feed them?" And this little boy walked up, and he had a basket, and in that basket was some bread and some fish, and it said that Jesus blessed that. And out of that small boy's basket, we know that about 30,000 people had all they could eat, plus they collected 12 baskets full of food. What we're asking you to pray for, and what we've been praying for, is that 760,000 meals of rice that we sent in will be multiplied in the same way that Jesus multiplied the fish and the loaves. And that if we send another load in, what's going to happen is we're going to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that will be baptized into the faith, because the church in that community would be able to reach out and feed the people that are hungry. So we are continuing to work in Nepal. You no doubt know by now that there was a second earthquake. They have had tremors up to a 6 point that is almost as bad as a bad earthquake. I was on the telephone with a gentleman in Nepal and Kathmandu, and he was saying that many of the buildings that were damaged from the first earthquake absolutely fell in the second earthquake. And if there is a third earthquake, and there is a real significant danger that there will be a major aftershock or another earthquake, we're going to see even more devastation. We're going to see the roads and the bridges and all of the infrastructure being destroyed again that they've already worked on. And all of this makes it very, very difficult to be able to get the supplies into the people that are needed. Another problem that we have faced, and it happens in every disaster in the United States and around the world, we see it everywhere we go, is there are well-meaning people, churches, religious groups, community groups, businesses that collect a 40-foot container and ship the supplies over to the ports in India to be taken in through the mountains of Nepal. A lot of the containers have used clothing, and some of it's winter clothing, some of it's summer clothing, but the reality is it's not been processed properly, nor is there a receiving group on the other end. So one of the problems that we're facing, and even trying to get a container of supplies, particularly feminine care products, personal care items, things for the children, is that we can't get a container in now because there's such a backlog at the ports in North India with items that cannot be used, that will be destroyed. And the best thing that you can do is work with someone, whether it's Gleaning for the World or some other group of work with a group that has someone on the ground that can receive it and tell you what the people need. For goodness sake, do not send used clothing, and for goodness sake, do not send supplies without a recipient on the other end. The other thing we're facing is monsoon season. We're 3 to 4 weeks away from the rains. So many of the people are without homes. They're without any type of structure to support them or protect them from the rains. And once the monsoon season comes in, it is going to be a horrible place to be. You take into account that we have now about 2 million people that are food deficient, which means they have very, very little food to eat, or they have nothing to eat. We have heard stories from Nepal of people literally foraging out in the fields just trying to find something they can feed their children. And you look at trying to get containers across very difficult terrain. You look at the monsoon season coming up without any protection for the people. You look at the deficiency of food, and you have perhaps the epitome of the perfect storm. These people are going to be suffering for a long time. And thank God we have the Timothy Initiative and others that are working to train more and more pastors every year, and to place these pastors in communities so that they can share the gospel. Thank God we have people that we've been able to network with, Thomas Road Baptist Church, the Christian Broadcasting Network, all these different groups that we've been working with, Advance of Native Missions. All of these groups are able to give us exact reporting and make certain that we share the gospel, but at the same time that we take care of the immediate needs of the people. So please be in prayer for them. The Christian church is being persecuted in many areas, but not in Nepal. We have an open airway. We can broadcast the Christian message. We can share the food. We can share the gospel. And that is one disaster where God is going to be able to use a Christian community to do awesome miracles.
Thank you for tuning in to today's presentation from Gleaning for the World and the Gleaning Church Network. Mr. Davison today talked about Nepal and what we have going on there in Nepal. We really appreciate you tuning in. My name is Michael Justice. I'm a director of the Gleaning Church Network. We have a network of churches with which we connect with. We believe that mission work is the lifeblood of a congregation, and many congregations partner with us here at Gleaning for the World to do some mission work through us, with us. We are responsible with the money that is sent, and we give churches an opportunity to participate in mission work. So we appreciate what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and we have information on our website. It's gftw.org, so be sure and go to our website, look that information up, call me. If you have questions about what we do at Gleaning for the World, call me and we'll do our best to help answer those questions, to help your congregation to be a part of a mission project that is worthy both domestically and internationally.